What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Really do appreciate you being here. If you are new here, hey, how you doing? My name's Chris and I'm building a business that suits my lifestyle. Now today we are addressing the third topic coming from my What is your biggest problem in reselling at the moment series. Now, over the last couple of weeks I have been addressing a few different topics, and basically this has all come from questions that you had, or from you actually calling out what is your biggest problem right now in your reselling business or reselling hustle. And today we're getting on to topic number 3, which is financial and business management. Now this one is probably my favorite topic because I love numbers. My background is numbers. I was a project manager for a good 8-9 years, and this is where my groove is at. But at the same time, it's probably one of those topics which people find boring. It's one of those topics which people don't realize the actual importance of this, because they think if I've got the money, it's all good and I'm happy to move on with it, you know. But at the same time, just because you have money in your pocket doesn't actually mean that it's a good thing, because it might not actually be profit. You might not actually be profiting, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So there's 2 things that we're going to go through today. And the first one is I'm going to take you through 10 essential things that you should be keeping in mind or taking into account when it comes to financial and business management in your reselling business, even if you're doing this as a side hustle. And the other thing is I'm going to address a number of your different questions that have come through. I've kind of put them into a list of very generic questions that seems to be very common thread across what you guys have asked over the last couple of weeks. So let's get into it. All right. So if you're not aware, managing finances obviously is a big part of any business, and just as important for reselling. Whether you're doing this as a side hustle, whether you're a beginner, maybe you're, starting to do over $30,000 a year, or maybe you're hitting over $100,000 in revenue. Maybe you're getting some good profit too. Is absolutely crucial. And there's 10 essential things that I think are very relevant that anyone, whether you're doing 1 sale a week or 1,000 sales a week, that you need to be ensuring that these 10 things are on the top of your mind. Number 1 is detailed record keeping. Now, this is not because I say so, but essentially if you're running a business here in Australia, especially if you're running a profitable business and you need to put that against the ATO, meaning the Australia Tax Office, or you've got to pay tax on that, which if you're earning over $18,000, then by all means you're paying tax. And that's not just with reselling, that's a combined income. So you need to take that into account. And of course, I am not an accountant. I am not a professional in this space. So, I'm giving you my insights of what I believe are absolutely essential. First one being detailed record keeping. But if you do need help with this area, please do reach out to a paid professional or an accountant. So number 1, detailed record keeping. Now, this is to ensure that you understand your sales, your expenses, and the transactions that are happening, whether it's incoming or outgoing. And this just ensures that with this data, you can actually track very simply your profitability, and you're going to have enough information for your tax filings. And also, if you do it right, you'll have enough information to make informed decisions. The next one is budget and forecasting. When you understand how you are going to operate in terms of I have $1,000 to spend for a month and I need to cover my postage, I need to cover my expenses, I need to source new products, you can then start to be honest with how the business is going. I like to use the Profit First system. If you haven't checked out that book, I'm going to put it up on the screen. You can go check it out. It's got a nice little process where essentially each week as my money comes into my bank account from eBay, I divvy it up into a percentage-based approach. Basically, some going into a profit account, some going to a tax account, some going into an OPEX account, operating expenses, some going into my, what I'm going to pay myself. And then I've got a few other accounts for a few different things. And essentially it ensures that I've always got a certain amount of money covered or catered for the certain different things that will pop up on a monthly or weekly or regular basis. And then when you have that budget, you can start to see what's working, and then you can actually start to use your actuals of where you land at the end of a month versus, what you predicted. And then if there's a delta, it means you can make a fine tuning and you can start to forecast what the next couple of months are going to look like. You need to be doing this. Why? Because it's going to enable your business to grow. All right. The next point is cash flow management. This one is, look, at the end of the day, you can, on paper, you could be earning lots and lots of money. And there's that familiar, actually it's spoken about in Profit First, where, someone goes to their accountant at the end of the year and it says, yeah, I've done $100,000 in revenue, your profit's 50 grand. And the guy's like, well, where's my money? I've got no money in my account. Why don't I have any money? That's because you have a cash flow issue. And cash flow is ensuring that you've always got enough money on hand, which is why Profit First works a charm, to cover your expenses, to cover all those things that need to be catered for, especially in the slow periods as well. The next one is investing in an accountant. Now, look, there is software out there that you can do. You can do this all yourself, but having an accountant, not to actually do the work for you, but to keep you honest, to help you understand what are the levers that you can be taking and keeping you honest. Now, at the same time, for those that don't know, Ethan Rushock, who is my accountant, we actually created a reseller spreadsheet together. So that's something that you could leverage as well. Not everyone needs that. It depends on your size and the level that you're at in terms of your business. But that aside, you can go to any accountant. You don't have to go to Ethan. Ethan's really, really good, and I can 100% vouch for him. But the point is, when you invest in an accountant, they can keep you honest and ensure that you are doing the things along the way, the right way, so you're not getting to the end of a financial year and you have no idea what you've done and you're in a sticky situation. The next one is a regular financial review, actually checking in with how your business is processing in terms of what dollars are coming through. Are you actually profiting? I like to do a monthly profit and loss statement. I share those on this channel. I do my weekly updates to you guys. Again, I'm doing that anyway. I'm looking at my weekly numbers anyway, and I'm just sharing it with you. So having those regular check-ins to enable you to see what's working, what's not, are things up, are things down, do you have any levers? And as you start to accumulate this information, it's going to help you make better informed decisions and also enable you to make better strategies on what to do next. I think the other one that people forget about, and this is a big, big one, is separating your business and personal finances. That in itself should be very straightforward, like very logically, yeah, that makes sense. But if you're going to be doing a business, have a separate account for it. Have a separate credit card for it, or have a separate card for it. Make sure your record keeping is done only on a certain business account, right? Don't start mixing and matching because it gets confusing and it creates extra work for you and it gets messy and you don't really have a true picture. The next one is tax planning, which kind of ties in with having an accountant, but when you understand your tax implications of your reselling business, you can start to see what options and levers you have. Now, this doesn't apply to reselling. This applies to any business. When you understand where your numbers are at and what level you are in your business, because if you're earning over $75,000, you're meant to be paying GST. If you're, profiting over a certain amount, there will be a level of tax that you'll have to pay, things like this. And if you have an intention to make profit from reselling, you need to declare that to the ATO. So you need to have in your mind and it catered for in terms of, okay, how is this going to impact me? What are the implications I need to be aware of? And that's why having an accountant on hand is very, very key, because it can help you save a lot of dollars, but also save you from some sticky situations. The next one is diversification in sourcing and investments. When we look at our business, we can look at it from the product that's coming in that we are purchasing. So for instance, the different, products that you are selling, but also investments into the business. Now, we obviously will invest our money into goods that we're going to sell. It might be clothing, it might be collectibles, it might be video games, it might be whatever is your niche, that's fine. But there's other things that you might want to look at in diversifying your money into to ensure that the business is actually going to grow. Whether it's hiring someone, do you need to upgrade some tools? Do you need to get some more storage space? Do you need to implement something that's going to make you more effective to enable you to actually grow the business? So you do need to always think about, are there different options of how you spend your money? But also, are there different options on how you source? Can you save time? Can you not invest all your money in one basket? That's really essentially what I'm trying to say, but also look at it. How can you leverage your money that's coming in to help grow the business, not just from sales? The next one is plan for business growth. Like, if we go into this thinking that the business is just going to grow, how? Like, how is it going to grow? Put in some goals, set some targets, understand, what's moving, what's not, understand how you're going to budget for all the things that are happening. Have some things in place to help your business grow, help it succeed. If you don't understand your numbers, like I have a dashboard that I track everything on. You can see it up on screen. I know my average sale price, my average profit price, my posts, my cost of goods, how much I'm earning per day, what my target is per week. Am I on track for that? What I'm doing monthly, my goals for the financial year, my goals for the month, all this level of detail. Now, I'm not saying you need that information, but it helps me plan for my business growth. It helps me understand that I can pull this lever, or it helps me understand that I've got a bit more money to actually go out and source some more goods. I can go purchase those things. If someone comes and gives me an opportunity, can I afford it? So having all this information enables you to plan for your business growth. Final one is continuous financial education. understanding one, what are best practices, which again, your accountant's going to help with that. But two, making sure you are doing things by the book and legit, and also keeping yourself aware of, are there any changes, implications legally or, in the government that might impact your business for the better or for the worse. Again, coming back to an accountant, my accountant, Ethan, has enabled me to, change the way I've operated a number of times, and they've been more rewarding because I can change how I approach my accounting principles in terms of how I actually register cost of goods, how I actually manage the way that I am selling things. There is so much opportunity out there as we start to grow as a business of what makes more sense depending on how much you're earning. I'm not trying to get too complicated or technical here because it can be a little bit overwhelming, but that's why I'm saying if you speak to an accountant, you'll soon find out if there is a big benefit there, or maybe you just need to keep doing what you're doing. We're going to dive into some questions that have come from you guys over the last couple of weeks. What does financial and business management for resellers entail? Well, look, I think we've just kind of covered this, but essentially it's about understanding your money, understanding your numbers, understanding what's coming in and what's going out. So your expenses, but also understanding what is actually happening. Are you making a profit? And your profit is after all the revenue that's come in, so all the sales that you've done, after all the expenses, how much money is left, basically deducting, your cost of good, basically how much money is left. Now, sometimes if you don't have a good cash flow, just because you might have sold something for $100 and profited $50, do you actually have the $50 in your pocket? No, because you might have spent that on something else already. So keeping in mind how that works, I think is absolutely crucial for resellers, because it's a buy and sell game. We have to be buying and we have to be selling in order to be making. And I think one thing that might make this easy for you is just have a simple tracker of understanding your sales and your expenses, and are you making a profit? And then you can start to get into a bit more detail, whether it is a reseller spreadsheet or, getting in more detail of how you do your record keeping. But as you grow, again, I'm doing about $160,000 in a 12-month period, which means I have a lot more transactions. If you're doing 5 transactions a month, it's going to be a lot easier for you. Why is it essential to maintain and understand financial records? 1, it's going to enable you to track your profitability. 2, it's going to enable you to plan for the future expenses. And 3, you're going to need it for tax purposes. That's essentially it. How can beginners avoid spending more than they earn? I think this one, it's sorry, I don't mean to laugh because it is a genuine question. But set some guidelines, set some rules, set a budget. If this is how much money you have, like if you're starting this from scratch and you're saying, I'm going to build a business from $100, well, that's how much money you have. If you buy a DVD for $10 and you think, okay, I'm going to sell it for $30, you've only got, $90 back in your pocket, right? So you can go buy more stuff. But if that DVD sells and it's going to cost you, let's say it costs you $10 to send because it's a big box set, well, you need to make sure you're going to have $10 in your bank account, right? And then there's going to be fees, and there's going to be, maybe you have to buy some packaging. So all these things come into account of that $100. Now, all of a sudden, yes, you might have made an extra $30, $40 from it, but from a cash flow standpoint, you might only have $90 in your bank account, right? Because of a timing issue, or maybe you purchased some other things, and maybe it didn't go as planned. Maybe you've only got $50 in your bank account. But the thing is, you need to take that into account, and that's why it's important to have a budget and to not overspend, not overpurchase, and track your expenses. Understand, if I need $100 on average to pay for my postage per week, you need to have $100 in your account each week, a minimum. But if you all of a sudden sold double the items you've ever sold before, how are you going to pay for it? So you need to grow slow, grow smart, and do that with a budget. I leverage the profit first system. What challenges might one face when transitioning from personal selling to business selling? I think, obviously going into business, it's usually going to be a bit more volume. There's going to be more expenses, and there's tax implications. And you do need to be record keeping, very detailed. And when I say detailed, it's just being honest with it, right? So that's really the biggest challenge. And I think having bad habits from when you've personally, if you're just selling a couple of Pokemon cards because, you don't want them anymore or whatever, sure, whatever. But then if you started selling Pokemon cards because, I'm going to start flipping them, you might have picked up some bad habits of how you track those dollars, and you don't want to take them into your business because that was personal selling. It wasn't business selling. And the difference between personal and business is the intent to profit. How can beginners ensure they don't run out of cash? Again, using profit first system myself, but I would regularly, on a regular basis, review how much money you do have, avoid spending, again, setting those different budgets, and have a buffer in there, right? Set a limit so that you would never go below $100. And then if you do pay yourself, or if you do have extra room in there, you can spread that money out, or you can treat yourself to, I'm going to go buy some more things. But yeah, setting in those rules of operation, I think, are absolutely key. How can resellers effectively manage business growth? Oh, one, I think building a self-sustaining business that's reinvesting profits, planning on how you tend to expand your inventory, so new stock, and then possibly just growing as it grows. And what I mean by that is as you start to sell one thing, two things, three things, you're going to build confidence and you're going to want to buy more. But don't, all of a sudden go buy something which doesn't make sense to your process. So if you're only processing 100 items a week in terms of listings, and you go buy, 1,500 items, and you've never had more than 100 items on stock before, it's going to be quite overwhelming. So ease into that. And the other thing is then just looking at some of my other notes that I thought about in advance of this is making sure you have a process to manage that stock. And we spoke about that in a video last week. How you're going to track the stock, how you're going to skew the stock, how you're going to process the stock. I think that's what's going to help you manage the business growth a lot easier. What tools or software can help manage financial records? Look, there is Xero, which is quite a good tool. I use my own reselling spreadsheet, which is combined with Ethan. You can check out the video. We've got a live demo. But there's a lot out there. There's a lot of different tools being used. Two Aussie Thrifters have one. I think if you went to another accountant, they'll probably have one as well. So really just something that's going to do the basics of bookkeeping. Mine is probably more focused to people doing over $10,000 in revenue. But at the end of the day, you really just need something that's going to track income, expenses, and profitability. That's it. And record keep your sales of items. How can one ensure they have enough funds for bulk deals or larger investments? I think as money comes in, setting aside a portion of that for that reinvestment. Now for me, as I said, I use the profit first, so I have percentage allocation. And then I know that, okay, I've got a certain amount of dollars that I can go buy a bulk deal. Look, there have been times where I've used capital funds, meaning I might have sold some shares. I got $1,000 that I want to reinvest into the business, and I might use that to go buy some more stock, or, I might use it to, make an investment into the business. But look, people do use loans, people do use credit cards and things like that. I do use a business credit card. I'm not saying that's what you should be doing, but it's different for everyone. There are options in there, but I think you don't need to do those things. Maybe as you start to scale, like, last month I put, I think it was $10,000 in expenses through the business. So once you start getting that on a monthly basis, you might want to start leveraging some different credit options. But, when you're starting basic and you're maybe only going through expenditure of $100 to $1,000 per month, you shouldn't need those kind of things. What are the risks of overspending in the reselling business? Well, one, you overspend and you don't have money to then be able to pay for things. Now, obviously eBay pays out, you can do daily, weekly, monthly, fortnightly. I do weekly. And that ensures that I'm keeping true to my budget, because if I'm getting paid out daily, I've got money coming in and you think, I can use it. But sometimes you forget what are the costs that you need to be doing. Now, if you're posting daily, it might make sense. But if you're posting a couple of times a week, weekly works better for me. So I think by setting, again, a structure, a process, an understanding of what's coming in and what's going out, then you can actually ensure that you are keeping a minimum amount that you need to run the business. If you know that on average it costs you $150 of expenses per week in postage or in fees or in supplies, you need to keep $150 always readily available, not including stuff to source. So if you've only got $200, you've only got $50 to spend on sourcing. How can one differentiate between essential expenses and unnecessary ones? Well, I would like to think anything that I put on through the business is prioritized, meaning, do I need this today? If there's, for instance, do I need a new phone for the business? No. Do I need a new computer for the business? No. Do I need to go out and buy, the latest label printer? No. So there's certain things that you don't need to be able to do reselling, but as you grow, they will be tools that will enable you to have your business more effective. So I think just keeping it small, simple, the bare necessities, until you start doing volume, then that's when you'd want to start looking at making some expenses on some different things, which then become necessary expenses. When you start, an essential expense is ensuring that, you can afford to pay for postage. When an unnecessary one at the start would be going out and buying big box lights to take a photo of one item a week. It just doesn't make sense. How do top resellers ensure consistent profitability in their business? Well, I use data. Data is key. You can get a lot of your data off eBay that tells you I manage my expenses, I manage what I sell, and I'm doing, different things to keep that sell-through rate. But as you can see here, it's not always straightforward. It's not linear. There's ups and downs, but my dashboard tells me everything I need to know. What strategies can be employed to manage large volumes of financial transactions? Look, what is a large volume? When I started, I was doing 1 or 2 sales a day, if that. Now I do 12 sales a day. I'm posting 2 times, 3 times a week. On average, that's about 30 items that I'm posting. And I wouldn't say that's high volume. High volume of transactions, if you're doing... So I do 400 items a month. I know people doing 400 items a week. So I can't really answer this, but I think, there might come a point in time where using some software like Xero might make sense. But for me, my reseller spreadsheet, that has enabled me to sell. I've now sold over 7,000 items since starting, or 8,000, and it's all been tracked through that. So it's worked well for that, and it literally takes me 3 seconds to update because I've been doing it as a habit. How do advanced resellers manage financial challenges during market downturn? I think this is actually what separates people to be able to do this as a full-time gig. We've had dips. I've done this through COVID. I've done this during, when we've had the economic crisis. And, I've gone from having best months to lower months to getting back into some sense of normal run rate. So I think being able to trust your process, have enough data to back up that, one day doesn't define the rest of, the year, but also knowing when to call it. Like if everything's trending down, maybe something needs to change. If your expenses are trending down, like more and more, something needs to change. So I think understanding what's working and what's not, and the only way to do that is by keeping records and understanding that there are levers you can pull with that. So my recent video the other week when I spoke about my, update for FY24, which was the August 2023 results, I spoke about, some of the expenses, some of the things that I'm doing to try and manage that. And if, I can spend a lot of money, I can buy really good stuff, but if people don't want it, what happens, right? So we do need to be mindful in making risk-based decisions, but also comfortable risk and being, happy to go with that. And then how do we mitigate that? Like if I buy a lot of winter wear now going into spring, it's probably not going to sell. But if I can get it at half price now, and I know that I've got it to sell and I've got it ready for winter next year, it could be worth it. But do I have the space? Do I have the funds? And that's why managing your cash flow as well isn't key, because if you need to have reserves for when things aren't going well. Any courses or training that can enhance financial and business management skills? Look, for me personally, my background, I did a Bachelor of IT focusing in business analysis. And I then went and worked as a project manager. So that came naturally through experience. Look, there's probably certain things, online courses that you can do. I think just having a conversation with your accountant of basic practices, that's probably going to be enough. And then starting to just continue to educate yourself and look at ways that you can learn. Doing your own research is absolutely key as well. But also, if you need help, seek for it. Don't go looking somewhere. And if you don't understand it, I think you can just go follow it. Like even me talking about all this, I go do the profit first system, but I say go read the book. Read the book, understand it, and see if it works for you. The last one is, how do market trends or global economic factors impact financial management? Look, I think it impacts demand, it impacts pricing and your profitability, but we can stay updated, but sometimes it's out of our control. So, the way I look at it is like, if things are going slow at the moment, I can't slow down, because if I stop listing, if I stop having product ready to be sold, and then all of a sudden people have money and I don't have items there to be sold, they're going to go find someone that has it and buy it off them. So you really need to find a way to push through, have some grit, source alternatively to get through those roller coaster moments. Yeah. All right, that's it from me, folks. If you do have any questions, comments about all this, more than happy to answer. We're going to leave it there. If you want to see my weekly update, that will be coming in a separate video. Otherwise, more than happy to continue the conversation. You have a wonderful day. Cheers.